Our mic is muted. Perfect.
There we are.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to PCCS's Empower Hour. My name's Alyssa D'Augusto.
And as always, I'm Kevin Roman.
And we're here today for a special episode of Women in Leadership and Women Empowerment with our amazing leaders here at Person-Centered Care Services. So with us today, we have our Executive Director and CEO, Chris Marchione, our Deputy Executive Director, Alexa Donnelly. We have Nicole Del Preti, Corinne Lopez, Michelle Toy, and Christina Valdez. It is a full house. Welcome, everyone, to our Empower Hour.
Hey, hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. So before we get started, can we kind of get a brief introduction of who you guys are? Let's put some faces to the names.
Hi, I'm Chris Marchione. I'm the Executive Director at Person-Centered Care Services. Really happy to be here with my colleagues and friends and have a nice chat for the next hour or so.
Thank you, Chris.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alexa Donnelly. I'm the Deputy Executive Director here at PCCS, and I'm also excited to see how this discussion goes and always so proud to see how many women in leadership we have here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Del Preti. I'm the Division Director of Support Services at PCS. I as well am very excited to be here alongside a bunch of wonderful women, and I'm excited to see how this conversation goes.
Hi, everybody. I'm Corinne Lopez. I'm the Director of Quality Management and Corporate Compliance at PCCS. I'm very excited to see everybody today, and I can't wait to hear everybody's stories.
Oh,
Michelle, you're mute.
uh-oh.
Is muted as
There we
well.
There we go.
My name is Michelle Toy. I'm the Director of Self-Directed Supports here at PCCS, and along with all the other ladies, I am also excited to be here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Christina Valdez, and I'm the HR Director. I'm excited to hear your stories and to hear feedback from everyone watching.
Love it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. So to get started, we're going to talk with our Executive Director and Deputy Executive Director. So for the rest of you, I'm going to be taking you out of the stream. You guys are still here, so please feel free to join in on the conversation. We're not done with you guys yet, so we'll be back. So in the meantime, Chris and Alexa, welcome. Thank you guys again for joining us, for being repeat guests again and again. And we thank you.
Sure, our
Thanks
pleasure.
for putting this together.
Yeah, absolutely. So to get started, can you tell us a little bit about your professional experience, kind of where you started? I know that it's a long journey, but I would love to hear kind of the overview of how you guys got started in the field, how your experience and journey and growth and mentorship.
Right. So about 30 years ago, it was around 1989, 1990. I actually ran a business, a card and gift shop in Brooklyn. Totally different from the work that we do here. And that at that time, I was much younger. I was in my early 20s, and I always wanted to operate, a business. I really don't like the idea of having a boss. Sorry, but except for Bruce. He's my only boss. And with that, I decided that running a gift shop, especially dealing with, bridal invitations and favors and gifts and things like that, it really wasn't for me. And I didn't have my college degree at that point. So I went back to school. I was working for my uncle in a hardware store in Brooklyn at the time. And, one of the customers came in and we kind of got friendly. He was a repeat customer. And I asked him what kind of line of work he did. And he worked for a company at the time called ACRMD. And being very young, I didn't know what an acronym was because I was looking for the vowels. Like, how do you pronounce ACRMD? Acronym, and he told me that company, was a not-for-profit organization providing services to people with disabilities. And I said, oh, that's interesting, like to help people and support people, and things like that. And he said, yeah. And well, we're looking for counselors. And I'm like, oh, that sounds really interesting. And I applied, not knowing what the job was about. Had no idea what a group home was at the time or what a direct support professional was. And but I took the job and I stuck with it for the next, 30 years or so. And at that point, I was working as a direct support professional in a group home in Brooklyn and providing supports to about 10 people that lived in the home. I then, got promoted to an assistant manager of that residence and then moved on to a residence manager. And from there, my career, I joined a larger organization, Cerebral Palsy of New York State, and I worked in quality management. And then I moved over to Volunteers of America in around 2003, and I was director of their programs on Staten Island. And at that time around that time is when I started getting the thought of, running, an organization, creating an organization myself and leading that organization, because I kind of thought differently than what the organizations that I worked for previously. What I envisioned was a bit different than how they went about things. I really wanted to truly be person-centered. I learned about that philosophy in the early 90s, and I felt the organizations that existed at that time, they really weren't being truly person-centered. I think this was a new concept at the time, and they were still stuck in that systems-based, operation, and that just wasn't for me. And if you weren't a leader, there wasn't any way you were going to make that change, especially in a large organization. So that's kind of why I went out and figured out how do you establish a not-for-profit. How do you bill? How do you get services? How do you reach out to people? So I learned it all. And here we are about 15, 16 years later. And, from starting out, in the basement of my parents' home, this organization, and working 2 full-time jobs to support myself and my family, now we have about 500 employees. We're supporting, about 700, 800 people in all 5 boroughs. And I'm working with a great bunch of people here that are now, with their creativity and their innovation, they're creating so many new things that I never envisioned. So, it's almost like back then I look at it, what I looked at it I look at it now and think like, I made the unimaginable happen, so to speak, created this organization. And now we're imagining, along with you guys, we're imagining everything that is possible. And I'm enjoying this part of the journey too, because I get to look back and look at what you guys are doing, and sort of reflect on that and really take pride in it. So I appreciate everything that's happening here.
Wow.
Right.
Wow, what a story. What a journey. Oh, thank you so much, Chris. Alexa, can you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Sure. So I like to say I was kind of born into the field because my mom had been working with people with disabilities from before I was born. And her work and personal life, especially at that time in the field, it was very acceptable for those two to be very intertwined. So I remember as a child spending a lot of time in the group homes that she worked in and being at birthday parties. And I was in the integrated swim class that happened on the state grounds at the Elizabeth Connolly Center. So it really sort of, I guess it found me where, I was born into it. But then I did start as a DSP. My career is actually so far half of Chris's. So Chris said 30 years, and I'm going to say about 15. Working as a direct support professional was one of my first, I guess I should say, on the books jobs. And I absolutely fell in love with it from there. As a young person, definitely felt like I was going to do the opposite of anything my mom did. So I was very determined to not work in this field. And that obviously worked out so well. I think I was going to decide to go to school for journalism. That really took a turn and went into social work. So I was a DSP for a long time and worked in a variety of different positions. me and Corinne actually used to do a karaoke program with one of the agencies on Staten Island, and we made it like a club night, and we had a lot of fun, and still have a lot of fun working in this field. And I think that's what drew me to stay in it for so long. And so I went to further my education, and I got my bachelor's and my master's in social work. And so now I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I've worked in a lot of different varieties of positions supporting people with disabilities on the sort of emotional health and wellness side, the programmatic and, administrative side, and sort of all of the in-between, and in private practice therapy and some other roles. And I just love it.
That's great. That's great. So now, it being Women's History Month, we talk a lot about empowerment and women empowering other women. We've come such a long way, and we still have a journey ahead. However, what has empowered both of you? Who or what have empowered you throughout your professional and personal lives?
Yeah. For me, it's a lot of women, women in my family, both of my grandmothers. I'll start with them. Had two different approaches in life. One was a risk taker, which I definitely, acquired that attribute from her. And the other one was so riddled with concern about what could happen. Be careful if you do this, because you never know what would happen. Everything that I did. But I also acquired that attribute as well. So I have like both, like taking risks, but nervous as heck, what's going to happen, what's the outcome going to be. But also my mom, raising a family and then going back to work after, we got a little bit older, and going back into the workforce after some time. And taking a chance too, going back into the workforce when you're in your 30s or late 30s, early 40s is a big chance to take. Especially when you're raising three young women, yourself. But also here, at work, definitely Kim Donnelly Adebola was, is one of the people that I still look up to this day, and the way she empowered me and others, holding, when you get the opportunity to walk through that door and lead, you don't close behind you, you stick something in it and you leave it open for everybody else to come through. And you support those folks, along the way. As far as like, I don't really have any celebrities that I look up to as far as empowering, because I don't know them personally. So I don't like to, refer to those people. At least, that's me. But here at the office, I have so many of you that I look up to now. Alexa, Alyssa, Corinne, Christina, Michelle, Nicole. There's so many here that you guys are just, leading the way and really lifting others up as you guys, walk through that door.
And Alexa, for you, who has who or what has empowered you?
I think to build on what Chris said, definitely, of course, my mother and also my grandmother. So my grandmother was part of the group that started the Alzheimer's Foundation on Staten Island. So being in the nonprofit community and in social services is just sort of in our family's bloodline, if you will. And both my mother and my grandmother got into executive and leadership roles with no formal education. My grandmother will share stories about when she had to go to the library to get books on leadership and public speaking and things like that, because she wasn't, she didn't have any formal training on doing that. And so to see the barriers that they were able to break through, even without that formal education, and myself having 9 years of formal higher education and still questioning myself on things, I think it's pretty amazing. My mom also had a very large family. I have 9 siblings. So she had her plate really full between working and momming and, caretaking to the rest of our family. And definitely my sisters, I mean, they both are very hard workers and, building their own families and all of the different hats and roles they play. and also a lot of the women that I've interacted with through my professional career, both Chris and everyone at PCCS, but also some of my previous internship supervisors. Tiana was an internship supervisor that absolutely opened my eyes to just a different lens of the world and changed how I view things. And parents of people we support and people that I've supported in the past have definitely just, created a space for me to always grow. And so there's a lot. There's a lot of women that I would say I look up to.
That's amazing. That's great. Chris, I actually have a question for you. Where do you think the overlap in women's history and disability history kind of come together?
The struggle. Bottom line is, if you're not in the privileged group of being a white man, you're going to struggle. Our society, the way it's constructed, is not built for people with disabilities. It's not built for women. It's been a constant struggle for hundreds of years, to get into the roles that we deserve to be in. Alexa talked about, her mom and her grandma not having a formal education. Those are the folks who make the best leaders because they're so passionate about what they do. It's just within them. You don't need a formal education to lead. You just know what's right. So for me, when you talk about disability, when you talk about women, when you talk about other groups, people of color, communities of color, immigrants, these are people who know what struggle is. And that's what, it may be a difference, but it's the same struggle. And that's what we're striving for, is to get what we deserve. And we need, society to be reconfigured so that we can get what we need.
That's great. Yeah.
To build on that, I was listening to about like the similarity of the struggles. I was listening to a YouTube video the other day, and I can't remember who it was. So I'll try to find it and link it in the comments later. But they were sharing if you haven't had to have a Supreme Court decision to uphold your rights and humanity, you haven't been in an oppressed group.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's not my own quote. That's from someone else that had shared this video, and I think the video might have been on TikTok. But that really is something that I feel like is just a common, structure in those that are struggling to make it where we should be able to be.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. For the both of you, what role does empowerment play, like in your leadership styles, both in the workplace, out of the workplace? Yeah,
for me, I think what I'm realizing now as I've gotten older is that now I have the opportunity to raise the voice of others, bring others to the table and validate their work, their experience, their education, their knowledge, and in some cases not their education, because you don't necessarily need that. So for me, empowerment means, definitely leading, but also listening and learning and identifying, hey, she's got this, she's got something there, and I need to highlight her. I need to bring her to the forefront so that other people can know who she is, and that person can then inspire others, and lead others. And it should just be like that. You carry that on, one leader to the next leader. Your role at one point will be to carry that on, pass that on, hold that door open for the ones who are coming up alongside you.
Yeah.
That's you too.
No, absolutely not.
I think for me, a lot of times I think about empowerment in terms of helping people build their own level of confidence, especially as a young leader. I mean, I'm only 29. So having an executive level position that I've been in, I believe since I was 25, was challenging. And there's a lot of, I think the sort of coined term now, and I know me and Kevin talk about this a lot with imposter syndrome. But I think it's just sort of this natural instinct that every young leader has, and every young person in their profession has. Am I doing this right? You know, am I good at this? Am I good enough for this? And I think how that impacts my leadership is just trying to build enough space to help people to build their confidence and allow them to use their mistakes as learning experiences and not detrimental, you know, to their career or their work with us, but allowing them to find their own way of doing things, because I think that's something in leadership that I definitely know that I struggle with, is not jumping in and just doing, and allowing folks to be able to take things on and do it, and giving space and time for that. And I think that in itself can be empowering. I think a lot of us need confidence boosts, and sometimes they're hard to find.
Oh, absolutely. I always say, for myself personally, like, everybody should be celebrated, even if it's the smallest thing, especially, and I feel like I've said this, I feel like a broken record. We're in a pandemic. You woke up this morning. You should celebrate the fact that you got up out of bed in a space where mental health is not at its best right now. So even the smallest successes deserve to be, celebrated. So I think that's really inspirational. So to kind of shift gears a little bit, we was talking about your executive role as a young woman, basically. We want to also direct our next set of questions to another young leader of ours, Nicole Del Preti, who is our Division Director of Residential and Community Supports. I think I got that right. I may have to switch them up, and I'm so sorry about that, Nicole.
Totally okay. I can't even keep up with it either.
Well, thank you so much for coming today, Nicole. To get started, can you tell us a little bit about your professional experiences? I know what PCCS, you are a PCCS pioneer. You have been through a lot. So can you
I remember, Nicole, when you were a DSP in ComHab, right?
ComHab, and then DayHab,
Yep.
and then back to ComHab. But I love that, a PCS pioneer. I'm going to use that. But sure. So my journey started when I was in my undergrad at CSI, and I was going for teaching. And a friend of mine actually said, you know, this place is hiring part-time positions. You'll work with somebody with a disability. And I was like, that sounds fun. Sure. I've never done the work before. It was a part-time job. It sounded like a good idea. And so that's how my journey started in, I believe, 2014. And I was still heading towards a career for working in the Department of Education. I wanted to be a special ed teacher. And it was actually at PCCS, and I believe Alexa was part of the conversation as well, who said, you know, why aren't you exploring social work? And I was like, I'm not sure what that even means, to be honest. You know, growing up, it was always, you can be a teacher, a nurse. Really, a lot of the careers that they spoke about was not social work related whatsoever. So I had then actually gotten into a master's program for special ed, and I actually backed out and I rerouted, and I began my MSW with CSI as well. And so I've been with PCS ever since. I've held a lot of different positions, and so I feel like that's really helped me in my experience and learning just about nonprofits in general, specifically working with people with disabilities. It's been a lot of fun and definitely a roller coaster, learning the different ins and outs of each department, each program. As Kevin mentioned, I started in the ComHab department working as a DSP, where I was working one-on-one with someone. And then I was able to work in the DayHab program with groups of people. And so it's just really been a great roller coaster and a great ride. And I'm just really grateful for having the experience.
Well, it sounds like you've worn many, many hats. And the newest hat is we are now transitioning into motherhood. We are so excited to have the newest addition to the PCCS family on our way very soon. So, Nicole, can you kind of give us a little insight on when you found out that you were pregnant and you knew you had to make a plan work related, what did that look like? What was that experience for you?
You know, I am so go with the flow and wing it, that I wasn't scared. I was just more so like, okay, so now what? Now what do I have to do? What should I plan for? What should I expect? And I'm a very organized person. And so with this and through my pregnancy journey, I've realized that things that are out of my control, I cannot do anything about. I just have to go with the ride, hope for the best. But there's really a lot that you can't plan for. There's only so many books that you can read and, you know, tips that you can take from other people. But until you're actually in it, is when you actually learn. So as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I was very happy that, you know, we're still in this, I would say 90% remote world. That's been extremely, extremely helpful. I forget who I was talking to the other day, but I literally said, like, I don't know how someone who's 8.5 months pregnant gets up and commutes to work every day. And so I've been really, really grateful to not have to do that every day. So this remote world has really helped my own mental health and my physical health during my pregnancy. And so as we're talking about women, I need to give kudos to all of those women who worked up until the last day, getting up every morning, getting dressed. Getting dressed is a real problem at this stage of pregnancy. So even that, you know, taking that for granted and being lucky that, you know, I can wear sweatpants. But those that are working in corporate worlds and are getting up, commuting, sitting in traffic, all of my kudos to those women, because that must be really, really challenging. I can't even imagine doing that, to be honest.
Me.
Yeah.
Same, honestly.
I'm looking at you like have something.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Respect, honestly. I co-signed that.
So Nicole, in your experience, and now even more so now, the fact that you do have a baby on the way, what has empowered you? What has kept you motivated to keep going? Who or what? I should frame that.
I would really say the little one that is growing inside of me. I've really shifted my entire perspective. Prior to being pregnant, I was very goal oriented. I still am career driven, but that was really what I thought all of life was about, in a sense. That, you know, all about me in a selfish way of, you know, developing in a professional way. And I never really thought about, you know, growing my own family and what that would consist of. So I would say, you know, my perspective really shifted once I realized that I was responsible for another human life, and that my decisions and my actions were now affecting directly this human being that is growing in my stomach. And it starts with even drinking water. You know, I'm not someone who really hydrates frequently when I'm not pregnant. And so the doctor's constantly having conversations. You need to drink at least, you know, I forget what it is. I just try to drink as many of these as possible. I hope that's enough. But basically, you know, you have to triple everything that you typically do and really pay attention to it. So it's been empowering to be able to support not only myself during my pregnancy, but also the little human growing inside of me.
What a superhero. I'm so cute. So Nicole, before we let you go, what role does empowerment have in your leadership style and in the way that you run your departments and, you know, inspire and empower your team?
So I definitely believe that, you know, in order to grow and learn and actually experience things, you have to be in it. And so I agree with Alexa, what she was saying before, that, you know, it's a lot easier to just do. But when you give somebody the opportunity to do it on their own and see how that works out and be there to support them through that, that's where the real impact is. And that's where the real learning opportunity is for anyone in any position. So I would just say, you know, having my teams feel empowered with all that they do. Even if, you know, they're not 100% confident in the decision that they're about to make, I want them to feel 100% confident, so that this way, after the decision is made, we can kind of check back and have that conversation and be able to have an open dialogue on, you know, how did this decision work out? What were some factors we could take into consideration on, you know, maybe the next time we make a decision, what would we want to change out of this? And making it really just an overall learning experience for everyone, and not so much you're doing something right or wrong.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. Thank you for that. And thank all three of you for sharing in your experiences. We are going to be transitioning to our next grouping of powerful and inspiring ladies. And we're going to take you out. Sorry, you guys can hang tight. And we hope to have you come back on. But we are going to now start with Michelle, Christina, and Corinne. So let's say goodbye to Nicole and Alexa. And here we have three of our other powerful women in leadership. We have Michelle Joy, Christina Valdez, and Corinne Lopez. Welcome, ladies. Thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, no. The pleasure is ours.
Honestly.
So I'm going to kind of pose this question to whoever wants to take it. Can you tell us where empowerment in leadership and in your leadership style kind of falls in? Let's just dive right in.
So I would say for me, I'll take the.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Michelle. Go ahead.
I think that I agree with a lot of what Alexa and Nicole were saying regarding just communication with the team, ensuring that they have the confidence to do what they do on a daily basis. I think sometimes with my team specifically, there is, a little bit of self-doubt. So what I like to do is I like to ensure them that, you know what, you got this, you got the answer, you know what you need to do. And just, really reassuring them that, don't doubt yourself. It's like a constant reminder, just that they are strong enough to do what they do and make the decisions that they make on a daily basis. And I think we all have that time where we feel a little bit self-conscious about, decision making. But I think it's just that constant reminder from me to my team that, you guys got this.
Absolutely. And Christina?
Just offering them a seat at the table, I think, is very important. Allowing them the opportunity, as Chris and Alexa and Nicole said, to make decisions and then own those decisions and see where the errors occur. But just listening to them. Sometimes voices can be overpowered. So if I see that happening with someone else, I'll also jump in and say, hey, I want to hear what Michelle has to say, or I want to hear what Corinne was saying. Sometimes it might just be standing up for another woman during a meeting when someone else is overpowering her. So it's just using your position at the time to make sure everyone is heard.
Love it. Oh, Corinne,
you're on mute.
You're muted.
Sorry about that. Just to kind of add, and I agree with everything, that was said already, but I think just being honest and speaking from experience and the times where maybe I didn't feel so empowered or I didn't feel so, confident to make a move, but just went into it anyway. And, mistakes happen, and just empowering people in that way, that it's okay to kind of just, go into it wholeheartedly, make a mistake, come out of it with a lesson learned.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I will say I really like so far that every person that has mentioned empowering other people gives them the room to make those mistakes. It's one thing to empower somebody when you know that they're doing the right thing. That's easy.
Right.
It's different to empower somebody and know maybe you would do it a different way, or there's a certain risk involved, and it's still empowering them to still make that decision. I think is awesome.
And I think that spans across diversity in general. Just having diversity of thought, diversity of ideas, cultural differences bring different approaches and opinions to things. And so being open to having a different way of doing things ultimately and usually leads to success.
Yep.
Even if there are hiccups along the way.
Yeah.
I like to implement that in my team meetings, is get everyone's perspective on a specific topic, because, your perspective may be different from someone else's perspective, and we'll talk collaboratively as a team to come to a consensus. So I agree with giving everyone that voice to be heard.
Very cool. Yeah, absolutely. So something that you guys all have in common is parenting, work-life balance, being able to kind of like figure it out. And I commend.
What is that work-life balance?
What does that look like for you guys?
Wow.
Well, for me, it means improvising and turning my attic into an office space / school for my daughter. It's been rough, but very, very rewarding. I have become more empowered through this experience, just kind of learning that I can do things that I maybe thought I couldn't. So it's been tough, but it's been good overall.
I think I would say for me, when my daughter was smaller, it was very, very difficult because there were times where I was working and there are times where I was working going to school, and raising a child on my own was insane. It's become a lot easier, whereas obviously I'm still a mother, but my daughter's older and she lives on her own, and it's just a different level of balance, I guess you can say. But I still need to make time, of course, to spend time with her and, get that quality time in. But, when she was smaller, it was very difficult. But now it's just a new level of that balance that I have to create. So
I'll second Michelle's emotion. I think when my daughter was smaller, I think that's when work-life balance was really an issue. And then I'll also say that Nicole was speaking to my soul when she was talking about having to work and be pregnant. So my water actually broke at work, and I was an assistant teacher. I had a classroom full of about maybe 20 kids, and they rushed me. My coworkers rushed me to the hospital. By the time I came back from maternity leave, I had my first master's program. So I was walking around with a laptop, my school books, all those heavy textbooks, a diaper bag, my daughter's stroller, the baby in the stroller. And I didn't drive because I was in the city. So I was going up and down the subway trains with all of that luggage, and my child, because my child isn't luggage. And we would do all of that work. So it was definitely very difficult in the beginning. But for me, my education was not negotiable. Like I was going to do it all. And ironically, I was going to school for HR management. So my final paper was on work-life balance. And now years later, I sit where I'm sitting now, and we have the opportunity to be remote. And it's almost like it's coming to life now. It's like full circle.
Well, that hard work, finally, it just, here we are. That's what it took, a pandemic, but
yeah, right.
Unfortunately, but yes.
That's so great. That's so great to hear. So earlier in our conversation, we were talking about how, it's 2021. Women finally kind of have a seat at the table. But we have a way to go. Is there anything from your perspective that we have to understand about women's rights and like where we need to go from here to be fully equal?
Right.
I'll jump in then. I don't know if anyone's heard of the pig tax before. That's something that I think is, Kevin, you're shaking your head. Yes.
A little bit, actually. Yeah, a little bit.
So I think that's something that oftentimes people talk about the wage gap, and not to undermine it in any way, but there's also another side of it as well, where even if we were to make the same amount and everything was to be considered equal as far as pay, there's so much more that women spend on that men don't. We have all these additional costs. And then even being an HR person and seeing what some of the benefits that are offered, some of the medical procedures that women need, in addition to some of the things that men don't need, those are all added costs that men don't incur. I don't know if it's okay to do this on a Facebook Live, but Old Navy is a good example. Back in 2014, they actually changed the cost of women's plus size jeans by $15 than the regular size jeans. But the men's jeans were the same, whether it was regular or plus size. Wow. So that wasn't, it's only $15 difference, but all of those little things add up over time. So when you think about what we spend, and then if you measure that against what we're earning, I think it's definitely something worth looking at.
Wow.
Absolutely.
I knew of both of those topics separately, but I never really thought about the overlap between those. Wow, yeah.
Absolutely. Does anyone else have any other what they would like to see moving forward in society to kind of get us where we should be?
I would say for me, it's just the continuous complimenting one another and, giving celebrating the growth that women, are going through. And that could be in your personal, circle, or just more widely around the world, just continuously celebrating accomplishments that women make, and really emphasizing the importance of, of that growth.
Absolutely.
I also agree with what Alyssa said earlier, is just complimenting and uplifting for even the slightest little things. Just encourage one another is very, very, very important. And I think it really is something that we just don't do enough of.
Absolutely. It's hard trying to kind of keep your personal problems like at bay sometimes. So sometimes you never know that one little compliment, like, thank you so much for reaching that deadline. Thank you so much for doing the thing that I asked you to do. Just
Right.
Thank you. That little thank you could really just go a long way. Even from my own experience, just having that little bit of, you're doing great, keep it up, kind of just brings everything back. It's like, okay, I know what I'm working for now. I feel like even when my confidence is here, I can get back up here just from that one little thing. So I'm sure other people, feel that too.
I do want to ask, since we also asked everybody else, what or who empowers you in your day-to-day life, or overall, I guess?
I'll start.
I think that's a very easy question for. Oh, go ahead.
That's okay. Go ahead, Michelle.
I'm sorry. For me, that's a very easy question, because the first person who comes to mind is my mother. I think she instilled in me from the very beginning the importance of education, the importance of independence, the importance of that confidence that I need in myself in order to be where I want to be. And my mom has passed, but when I was little, it was always, I'm going to try, or okay, that little hesitation. But, she always used to tell me, no, you're not going to try, you will do it. So even in attempting to complete tasks or if I journey into something new, I always have her voice in my head saying, I will do it. I will do it. And that kind of motivates me to complete whatever task is put in front of me. Even if I have no idea what I'm doing, I hear her voice. And then the other part of that is my daughter. You are an example to your children when they're little. They look up to you as being, super women, and they can do no wrong. And then as they get older, they kind of understand your movements more. So my daughter, she sees what I'm doing, but she understands the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. So when I went back to college for my bachelor's degree, and she was older, and she saw me go for my master's degree, and I used to tell her, it's never too late. So she understands the movements that I'm doing now. So I want to be an example to my daughter, so that she in turn lives her life the way that I feel, will empower her. So those two figures are definitely important to me.
Amazing.
For me, I think, and I have my obvious responses. My mother, she was a single mother raising 4 children and a full-time nurse in the emergency room. And, that of course empowers me to always, do my best. And no matter how challenging it gets, do your best. And like Michelle said, I have a daughter as well, and kind of just show her that I can't, you can get through everyday challenges if you give it your all. But I think maybe not everybody can share this experience, but I've had the same group of girlfriends for 20 years, and they empower me daily. I think we empower each other, and I don't think people celebrate friendships as much as they should, or maybe identify how important friendships could be. And we definitely do that. So I have to give that to my close group of girlfriends who every day empower me, and I try to empower them too by recognizing their accomplishments.
So I would say, not to sort of repeat what's been said, but I would say my grandparents were a big influence to me. They were 2 very different types of grandparents. One grandparent couldn't even speak English, so that was definitely a unique experience. And to see her, and there were no men really on my mother's side of the family. My grandmother had about 6 kids. 2 were boys, but everyone else was women, and all my cousins are girls, so they all had girls. So we were just a room full of women. And to see how successful each one of my grandmother's children became, despite her inability to speak the language of the land, to me was very empowering. Just showing that anything can be done if you try. My mom was also a single mom, and so to see her raise 2 kids also showed me what strength is. There were also people in my family who chose to live more of the traditional life, and I saw how that worked out for them. So I think I've just been exposed to women who've taken on all different types of career paths, different types of family life paths. And I think I've learned something from each one of them. And I think the biggest takeaway for me would be that women are not a monolith, and there's all different types of ways to be successful. And it's really how we define success.
I love that.
Perfect.
I love that. I want to make that my mantra. That's so great. Well, thank you guys again for joining us. I'm going to bring back our previous guests here. We have Chris, Alexa, and I think Nicole is still here. I'll wait until I get my heads up that Nicole's still here. But I want to thank you guys so much for. Oh, Nicole is still here. There she is. There she is. Hello. I want to thank you guys so much for joining us and kind of really encompassing the success story, like the real life success stories that are in front of us, and drives PCCS to being, where we are today. And it couldn't have been without you amazing women who show up every single day and just are creating change one step at a time and working together more so than anything. It takes a village, and these women right here are who bring it home every single day. So thank you guys again. We want to thank our viewers for tuning in, and we hope to see you guys very soon.
Thanks,
everyone. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, guys.